Oh boy. So, aloha kako. Welcome back to another Mo'olelo Monday. I'm just taking a peek at my YouTube channel analytics, I guess the analytics, and I'm checking out the last video that was put up, and it only got about 7 views, and it was put up about 2 weeks ago. And the Mo'olelo Monday was about Moe Uhane, which is about my mother. And if you haven't watched it, you should go check it out because it's actually got a few interesting stories about when I was young. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird that would have the least amount of views. And I'm looking at all my other videos, and they average out to maybe about 35 views per video, which is really cool. That's kind of healthy for my channel anyway. But yeah, I noticed the ones that got the biggest hits anyway was the Mahalo for Your Support video at 52 views, and the Ho'oponopono Mo'olelo Monday, which is at 74 views. And the Mahalo for Your Support has a thumbnail of it's over with my second book with a do not symbol around it, and the Ho'oponopono video has a YouTube termination final video with me looking, pretty depressed about the situation. Yeah, so I mean, to me, it feels like the viewership would kind of rather watch something that's depressing. They would rather watch things of failure, like negativity, which I do not promote drama in any way. I mean, if it's drama in a way where you are acting theatrically and telling a story through hardship and through difficulties, I mean, I'm all for drama. But when it comes to like real life and dealing with people's like small minor issues through the day, you know what I mean? It's, to me, that's kind of boring. But it's kind of sad to see that those two videos are the ones with the highest views recently, and they were about things that look like spelt certain doom. So I don't know if people want to just see me see me fail, or rather watch me go through difficulties than actually share paranormal stories. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So my Mo'olelo Mondays have incorporated paranormal stories in them, which are very interesting, but they also have the overarching theme of whatever I titled them as. So last week was Moe Uhane, and I talked about my mom. That picture, the framed photograph, was of my mother. She passed away a while ago, and I decided to honor her by telling some stories about her heroism when it came to me surviving. I mean, all parents, are heroes. They all protect and nurture their children so that they can grow and become, parents of their own. But my mom had to go through particularly strange, I guess, particularly strange feats to keep me safe. And those are some really interesting things. So if you guys haven't watched that video, go back, check it out. It's a good one. It has a lot of cool stories that still give me chicken skin. When I think back and recall the things that happened to me when I was younger. Yeah, it's surreal. But anyway, today's Mo'olelo Monday. I'd like to talk about something. Well, one of my stories is going to be about something that happened. It's pretty popular. Like a lot of people have experienced this particular paranormal event in their life or experience, but it's only happened to me one time. And I'm going to share that with you, and then I'm going to share another story that deals with the same kind of, I guess. Well, anyway, it deals with sleep. Okay, so whether or not you believe it, I know I do. Um, when we sleep, we are in a very meditative state. And a lot of people believe that when you meditate, you're able to communicate with a deeper part of yourself and connect to energies externally. So, the universe, spirits, God, whatever you believe in, ancestors, these things have the opportunity to come to you and give you signs, give you clarification, maybe even help you to decide what you're going to do in the future. Who knows? But these things kind of move through us, and sometimes during the daytime, during the hustle and bustle of work and moving all around and stuff like that, and of course having drama, we tend to ignore, or we just can't receive those energies like we can while it's, you know we're asleep, or when it's quiet, when it's dark, when there's less distraction. So we have moments when we're sleeping that we're able to move into this meditative state and accept more of that information. So, I wanted to talk to you about something, or I want to share stories about something, or a couple of things that happened when I was in my teenage years. And both times these things happened while I was with my girlfriend back then, which is my wife now. And so, for those of you that don't know, I remember seeing my wife for the first time in intermediate, when we were in intermediate school, and it was during a class that I actually was taking photography and yearbook at the time. And I remember I was tasked to go to a talent show and to photograph the different talents, as well as the people that were watching them, and to catch candid photos of people's engagement. And I remember walking into the auditorium, and there was a young girl up on stage doing the hula. And if you don't know, hula is our native Hawaiian dance. But she was performing the hula, and she had a partner who was doing the oli. And oli is just a chant, yeah. So hula's never done without. I mean, you can do hula without lyrics, but it's a no-no, right? You shouldn't be, if there are no words, you shouldn't be dancing the hula anyway. If you're going to be dancing to just music, then that's not hula. That's hula hula, which is your typical contemporary dance. But anyway, I'm getting off track. Yeah, so I hear this oli going, and of course the native beat of the pahu. I'm not the pahu, but the ipuheke, which is a double gourd that makes the tutata tutata ute ute ute. Yeah, makes the beat for the chant and for the dancer to keep the tempo. And this thing is going on, and I was like trying to find out where the sound is coming from, and I finally looked to the side. There's this young gal who's kneeling down, or she's closer to the floor, while the other young girl was dancing, performing her hula. And she's going at this, this ipu, and she's chanting out. And I said, oh, I was taken aback. I was like, if I had ever wanted to be with somebody, it would be somebody like that. Yeah, she just had this really strong leo, and it impressed me. It really, really impressed me. And one of the things that crossed through my mind was not only was her energy amazing, but she was really, really pretty. And I was like, wow, talk about somebody out of my league. And I just, to myself, I was, yeah, there's no way, buddy. You're not going to be able to snag one of those. But years later, when we moved into high school, we also went to the same high school. And I think I finally got the nerve the nerve to talk to her. I think it was towards it was in sophomore year. Yeah, I believe it was sophomore year. Maybe it was a freshman. I don't know. No, maybe it was sophomore year. Yeah, I was dying. I was dying to finally ask her out or to get her attention. And anyway, long story short, um, she gave me her number. I called her up. We started to go out, started dating, and just everything about her and everything that I dealt with in my life were so similar. So I remember the first time going to her house. Not the first time going to her house. It was one of the first times I went to her house and we were alone. And it was a weekend. We weren't really alone, but we were spending time together. And we had gone to a local video store, video rental store. For you kids that don't know, we used to actually go to a shop and look for movies, physical copies on VHS to watch on VCRs. But anyway, not like today where you can watch your movies on a cell phone or whatever. But we had rented a movie from this VHS shop, and when we got back to the house, she ran into the kitchen to go and pop us some popcorn. And of course, you know, the VHS tapes, you have to rewind them, yeah? So when I popped the thing inside, it was playing the very credits, so the end credits, so I had to rewind the tape. So while she was gone, I was rewinding the video, and so I'm sitting in her room in front of her TV. I'm getting ready to watch this movie, and I could swear I hear her walking back to her bedroom because I hear feet on the carpet. So I turn around to grab the popcorn or whatever that she's holding, and when I look, ain't nobody there. There's nobody in the hallway. And her bedroom door is actually right across from her sister's bedroom. And I'm like, looking outside, I'm like, hello? But yeah, there was nobody there. And so when she had come back to her bedroom with the popcorn, and we were getting ready to watch the movie, she asked me, what's the matter? I guess I must have had a look on my face. But she asked me, well, what's the matter? And so that was the beginning of it. I told her what happened, and she goes, oh my gosh. And from there we had this connection, right? We had this similarity in our lives, yeah? Of being not tested, but visited, yeah? Visited by things that you can't see, right? Typical people aren't capable of seeing or even experiencing, right? So that was the first time I had ever had anything happen with her, at the house. And I thought it was really strange, like just hearing these footsteps. And she told me, she says, yeah, sometimes I think my sister is coming into the hallway to go into her room, and I look and there's nobody there. And she says at night, because when you come out of her bedroom door, right across the way is her sister's room, but to the right is the restroom, is the bathroom. And she says when she wakes up in the middle of the night, she has to use the bathroom, she gets nervous because she doesn't like to be in that hallway. She says something about that hallway didn't make her feel comfortable, made her feel very nervous. So I'm like, oh, really? And so, that kind of like stayed in my mind, about the whole hallway thing, having something wrong. But anyway, so that's my first story. Yeah, nothing too big, right? Just experiencing footsteps. And so I would go over more often. We'd hang out, and nothing really crazy, went on during the other visits that I came over for. But then again, the house was more active with people inside, because I think the only person other than us at the house when we went to watch the show, I think it was either her sister or her mom, was one of those two. And I knew when the footsteps came through the hallway, it wasn't any one of those people, because then when I told Kiara about what happened, she was like, well, what, you heard that too? She goes, yeah, I would hear that too. But anyway, so getting to the first big story was Kiara came to my house one evening, and it was her first ever time that we were sleeping over each other's places. So she came to my house, And I believe I can never remember exactly what we were doing during the day, but we were in high school, and I remember my mom saying, "Okay, so you can go ahead and cruise with Kiara in the room, and when it's time to go to sleep, then you can come out into the living room and sleep out here." So I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, okay, that sounds cool." And can't remember if we were like canvassing for somebody's for like mayor or something like that. I can't remember what we were doing, or if we went to the Xeriscape. But cause my mom used to have us do all kinds of crazy stuff. We'd go all over the place, and we'd be busy helping her with her volunteer work. But anyway, I had a single bed, and it was leaned up against the west side of my bedroom and of our house, the furthest west side of the bedroom. And so I never really cared. That room had become my room like later on, like I said, in high school. But before, when my grandparents used to stay in that room, I never really cared for going into that room, because my first experience going into that room or coming into the house, my first time coming into my house as a kid, I remember there being some old guy with this white beard and white hair being in that back room when I walked into the house. And my mom, I told her about this guy being back there, and she says, "No, there ain't nobody back there." I believe I told this story on a previous Mo'olelo Monday. But I remember the experience that I had back there, so I never really cared for the very back room. And then, of course, later on, I would hear what sounded like people talking to each other in whispers coming in through like the windows, because that particular bedroom actually goes further back than the rest of the house. It's like the furthest back bedroom, and it was located really near these banana trees that we had in the back of our property. And so I always felt kind of at odds being inside that bedroom. It always seemed like a very active, paranormally active bedroom. But in high school, it had become my bedroom, and I had my bed up against the westernmost wall, and it was a single, and it was also pretty low. It's like I just had a box spring and my mattress, and then that was pretty much it. It was very, very close to the floor. And so I set up my bed so it was nice and comfortable for Kiara, and I laid on the floor, and my floor had this small fluffy like carpet kind of thing, like a what do you call it, like a terry cloth kind of carpet. So I was laying on that next to the bed with Kiara on top of the bed, and we were talking about our day. We were just we're spending more time together because we didn't want the night to end. We were just having too much fun together. And what happens is, as we were talking, I see the lights flickering. Like, I'm looking at the ceiling, staring up at the ceiling while she's talking, and then I'm answering her and whatnot. And all of a sudden, on top of the ceiling of my bedroom, I see the lights. Like, the light is like fading, like like blinking, or pulsating on the ceiling. I'm like, what the heck? And I had my lamp. I didn't have my room light on over above the ceiling light on, because then it would have been blinding. So I had a side lamp on that was next to the doorway, and so I'm looking towards the lamp thinking that maybe it's not plugged in. The plug is kind of like sticking out. And so I look at the lamp to see, if the thing is flickering because of the connection. I was going to get up and push the plug all the way in. And when I turn and look towards the front entrance of my bedroom, I see this shadow. It's this really tall shadow. And when I looked at it, it was really, really tall. And I'm pretty sure the thing was like 8 feet in height at least. And this shadow has no feet. It disappears, or the legs disappear mid-shin, because when it touches the ground, there's no feet. And you can see these legs, you can see the body, you can see the arms hanging down to the side, and its head. The head was kind of small. For the body of its size, the head was a little bit small. The proportion, anyway. And it wasn't like a solid shadow. This thing was looked like radiation coming off of a hot um driveway, a hot road, or the heat coming off of a barbecue. You kind of see these like energy, right? Which is kind of moving like this, and that's what it looked like. The energy of this silhouette of this figure kind of looked like there were these snakes just crawling all over it, but it was actually the energy, kind of like heat, moving upward like a hibachi. And so when I saw that, I was like, I felt intimidated, like this thing was in there to cause trouble. So I went to get up, and when I did that, I felt this heavy pressure hit me in my chest, and it pushed me back onto the ground. And here I am with my hand balled into a fist, and I'm like trying to move my arm up to sit up, and I'm looking at this thing, standing at my doorway, and it's just like taunting me as it starts to move across, the bedroom from the front door towards the side of my room where my bed was. And now I'm getting nervous because I don't want this thing to hurt Kiara. And so I start calling out to her. And as soon as I try to open my mouth, I feel this pressure just shut my jaw, like close my face shut. So I tried calling out to her through my teeth, through my Kiara, Kiara. I'm trying to like call out to her, and it ain't working. She's not answering me back. So this thing is holding me back. It's putting all this pressure on my chest. I can't move my legs. I can't move my waist. I can't move my chest. My arm is still stuck at my side, and I'm trying to talk, and this thing is like just pushing my face. So I'm basically paralyzed, and it starts to turn up towards the ceiling, where now it's right above me. And I want to swing at this thing so bad because it's like pissing me off because I'm stuck in this helpless position. But I'm stirring up, and I'm still trying to call out for my girlfriend at the time, my wife now. And the more and more I try to call out her name, the more it feels like this thing is taunting me. Until finally, this name pops into my head, which was Kiarina. So I call out Kiarina, and just this thing just like evaporates. The lights get bright again. This thing, whatever it was that was floating above me, it disappears. I sit up, and I turn immediately to look at Kiara, and her eyes, when I looked at her, she appeared to be, she kind of looked like she was dead, but she was sleeping. And so she sat up like that, and she looks at me. She goes, "What happened?" And I says, "What happened? Did you see the thing that was the guy that was in here?" She goes, "What? No. What are you talking about?" And so I told her what happened. Same thing I told you. There was this guy standing by the door. It pushed me down. It didn't touch me. It just floated toward me and was above me. And I asked her what happened to her, and she says, "I don't know. We were just talking. You and I were just having a conversation, and then all of a sudden she felt the urge, this urge to fall asleep, like she was put to sleep, like some kind of spell or something. She just said she was forced to go to bed." So I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. Yeah, she said when she went, when she physically fell asleep, she said she was wandering in a place of darkness, and as she was walking around this place, she was looking for me. And she could actually hear me calling her. Now, when I was yelling for her, I couldn't really get the words out, right? It was like that was more like a mumble. And she said while she was in her dream state, she said she could hear me calling out for her name, Kiara, Kiara. And it was echoing all around her, and she couldn't find me. So she kept looking, and my voice was faint at first, and it was getting louder and louder. And then and then she came out of it, and she saw me sitting there staring at her, And then when I told her, I says, "Oh, yeah." So I kept calling for you. I told her, "Yeah, I was calling for you, but this thing was holding my face shut, so I couldn't really say your name clearly." And I says, "The only thing that I could say or that came out of my mouth was Chiarina." And she tells me, "That's the name of my great grandmother, my Italian great grandmother. That's who I'm named after. That's my name. I'm her namesake." So I'm like, "What?" So it was really interesting. And so I learned later through like friends and stuff, after talking to them about my experience, I learned later that they would also too experience things. And these are different houses that lived around me, my friends that lived around same area. They would be watching TV and they would feel pressure coming down upon them, or they'd be just hanging out in their room. They feel pressure coming down on them. It would be accompanied by like snapping, loud vibrations or electricity, humming, buzzing, and then like these shadowy figures would appear. And so I was like, "Oh, very interesting, very interesting." And later on, when I became a part of the spooky kind of investigations, I learned more. Well, I actually kind of heard about it before when watching Ghost Hunters, but more so too when joining the spooky kind of investigations. They called that kind of experience sleep paralysis. Now, they say sleep paralysis happens either when you're going to bed or when you're waking up. Like you're kind of inside of this sleep state, and it's like your body releases the soothing chemicals to keep your body from moving around as you're dreaming and sleeping. And so when your brain is still active and you're experiencing your brain going through all this going through all the information that you thought about throughout the day, what ends up happening is you wake up during that filing or something, and you see these things that don't make any sense, because as your brain is filing all this information, it's like random, right? So you could have seen a pig, and then you could have met a person, and then those information comes back to you, and when you wake up you might see a guy with a pig face or something, like a demon, right? Or something. And they kind of classified it like sleep paralysis. And I said, "Well, I wasn't asleep when it happened." "Oh, well, then the questions come on. It's like, maybe you were, or at least trying to think logically about it, maybe you were actually falling asleep. Maybe you're actively going to bed and you didn't realize that your body was." I says, I wish that were true, but I was excited because this was the first time that my girlfriend was spending the night at my house. Her and I were actually pretty hyped. Like, we weren't ready to go to bed. We were not ready to go to sleep. We weren't sleeping. We were talking. We were in the middle of having a conversation when this thing appeared in front of my lamp, and I was still moving around. I was still talking, and I turned my head and saw this thing right next to the doorway. And it wasn't until I was gonna sit up to go at this thing that's when I felt the pressure. And then, of course, both of us experiencing sleep paralysis at the same exact time, and both of us getting up at the same exact time from the occurrence. Kind of weird, right? Too coincidental. So I'm not 100% sure that people that experience sleep paralysis scientifically as something neurologically that's going on in the brain, I don't think 100% of people are actually experiencing something off with their physical being. It's got to be more spiritual. It's got to be. So, the second story. Well, anyway, so I talk about, after we experienced this, of course, we're like freaking out. I'm going to talk to my parents. My parents are still up. Ran outside, told them about what happened. And it was actually at that night. It was that night that finally, my mother and father finally told me about what happened to me when I was a baby, about possession, demonic possession. If you guys want to hear that story, you guys can go check out Moe Uhane, because that's where my story about um, demonic possession happened. But anyway, that's when they finally told me about that information, and I was like, wow, man, you kept it, you kept this story hidden from me all this time. Like, what was the purpose of it? But they didn't feel like it was appropriate to tell me because I was young. But since I had experienced that encounter with this thing in the room, they felt like they needed to share that with me, and I was very grateful for that. So anyway, sleep paralysis. Okay, now this next story, not necessarily sleep paralysis, but there definitely something that touched me during my experience had happened while I was in the state of sleep. Okay, so this one more on the idea of there being sleep paralysis. But okay, so anyway, this next story happens my first time that I was staying the night at Kiara's house. So this first story, where we saw this tall guy, this tall shadow, was the first time she slept at my place. The second story is about me sleeping for the first time at her place. And basically the same thing happened. The roles were reversed. I stayed in her room and she stayed inside the living room. We were separated. And we're separated by that creepy hallway, because her bedroom, right? Her sister's bedroom, hallway, bathroom. And then, of course, from the hallway, you can go into the living room. Anyway, before it was time to go to bed, Kiara and I were sitting on the carpet watching a movie in the living room, because no one else was out there, so we decided to occupy the bigger TV. Anyway, it was kind of early. It was still pretty early, but since her mom worked mornings, like early mornings, and she couldn't chaperone us, she couldn't watch us, she told us it was time to go to bed. And I was like, oh, I really want to finish the movie, because we were right at the climax. We were right towards the ending of this show that we'd never seen, and Mom had already cut it short. So I was like, oh, okay, well, that's all right. We'll continue watching this later. And so she came into the room. She tucked me in. She told me good night, and she went outside. She left. She closed the door, shut the door. And in my family, we never really closed bedroom doors. We always kept our doors open. But for her, they used to close the doors because I guess they talked about like fire safety and stuff in their place. I was like, oh, that's actually kind of smart. But anyway, she closed the door. I closed my eyes and fell asleep. Now, we must have gone to bed about 8:30, 9 o'clock. It was pretty early. We didn't normally go to bed that early, but we went to sleep at 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And what happened was, I have this dream, all right? So I have this dream about Kiara and I sitting inside the living room on this red hali'i, on top of this red sheet. And we're looking at the TV, and the movie that's on the TV is exactly where we left off when we went to sleep, when we turned everything off to go to bed. So I'm sitting on the carpet next to my girlfriend, and we're like enjoying the movie in our dream, in my dream. I'm having this dream about enjoying the movie and finishing it with her. I guess, I'm kind of stubborn in a way, and I wanted to finish the movie because I didn't want to leave things, open-ended, right? So in my dream, I decided, oh, well, I'm just going to enjoy the rest of the movie with her in my sleep. And that was really cool. I thought that was so fantastic. I think that was like the first time I ever dreamt about Kiara. And it was her and I finishing this movie. Now, the only thing different about the entire scenario, we're watching the same movie. The lighting, everything was the same when we were in the living room before we went to bed. The only thing that was different was we were sitting on top of that red cloth. That was the only thing different. Like it was a picnic blanket. And as we were watching the movie, I see movement coming from behind the television in the hallway that leads to the bathroom and the two bedrooms. And this thing just catches my attention, just from the corner of my eye. So I look towards the hallway, and I see something just kind of move back into behind the doorway. I was like, the heck was that? So I'm just watching the doorway, and it's dark, Inside the hallway, it's like got shadow. It's got some light from the living room illuminating the hallway, but just the back wall. I mean, everything else was dark. And so I turned my attention back to the movie, and again, I see this movement catch my attention. So I turn back and look at the hallway, and I see this little top of this head staring at me, and it moves back behind the thing. I'm like, what the heck is that? Because it was bizarre. This thing was like a shadow, and from the side of the face that I could see where the eye was, it was a white eyeball with no iris, no color. So I'm like, what the heck was that? So now I'm just staring at the door. I'm not watching the movie anymore, but Kiara's still watching the movie. And now, instead of the perspective of me looking at us watching the movie and smiling and laughing, now the perspective is of me inside my head looking out from my own eyes at this doorway. And this thing peeks out again, and finally it knows I can see it. Like, it witnesses me staring directly at it, and it gets angry. Okay, so the eye kind of gets frowny like this, and then it steps out with its hand on top of the doorway. It steps out into the door frame. And when it does, now I know this is funny, but at the time it wasn't. It was quite jarring, surreal. But this thing must have been about 3 feet tall, whatever it was. It wasn't a very tall individual, and it was a person. It was male in energy, at least. It had the appearance of a man, but it was just short, and it had stepped out into the doorway, and it kind of looked at me with these golf ball like eyes, no color, and it was just glowing. It had this hair that looked kind of almost like electricity. It was just like wacky hair, Didn't brush it or clean it or anything. Just very, very dirty looking hair that just got matted. But it's all black. Everything is black. And I'm not saying like it's a shadow. No, it's actually the skin and everything. It's kind of like my shirt. It's black, and you can still see light reflecting off of it, and that's black, right? But you still have these highlights from the light, and that's how his skin was. His skin and his hair. The light from the living room was reflecting off his cheekbones, off of his forehead, off of the hair, like the shine from the hair. But it kind of more of was a gray, wherever the light was hitting it and reflecting off. But other than that, he had skin that was just black like this shirt. This guy starts stepping out from the shadow, and he's kind of moving really like he's wading through water. And he's getting closer and closer. And by the time he takes his 3rd or 4th step out from the hallway, I feel Kiara grab me, and she's saying, "Gabriel, what is that?" And I says, "I don't know." And then it gets even angrier, because now she recognizes this thing is in existence, and it bares its teeth. Okay, and these teeth are basically jagged shards like glass. Okay, coming down. And it's like just gnashing its teeth together, and it's making this noise. It's coming out of it, and as it's coming closer, it's doing these fingers like it's trying to taunt and scare us. And as it's approaching, I'm getting ready to punch it back, right? Get away. And it just kind of does that thing, and boop, I pop up in Kiara's bed. And this is like the first time I had ever had one of these night terrors. My heart's boom, 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 boom. I'm sweating, and then my body was forced up, sitting up in her bed, and I'm looking through the darkness of her bedroom. And I'm like, holy smokes, I'm like, that was like a night terror. And I was like freaking out. And so I'm looking around the room. The light from the moon and from the street lights outside is illuminating the room in a way that, you can still see things that are around you. It's not pitch black. But, yeah, so the walls inside her bedroom are white, so it's illuminated slightly. My eyes are adjusted to the darkness so I can still see things like the closet and the clothes that are hanging up on the bedpost and whatnot. And my heart is starting to slow down. Boom, 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 boom. I'm trying to get a hold of myself, right? And I see the darn bedroom door a crack between the molding and the door start growing in width, which means that something is entering into the bedroom. So this door starts slowly opening up, and I see this head, this rounded shape, about 3 feet off the ground. And it's slowly approaching alongside my wife's bed. And it's funny because her bed was kind of high. I wasn't used to, like, tall mattresses and whatnot, and bed frames like that. So it was kind of high. But anyway, as this shadow is lurking in towards the foot of the bed, coming up alongside me, I'm getting ready to punch down and crack it in the top of the head if it got too close. And what stops me is I hear this, the sniveling. And I look down really well, and I'm like, oh my gosh, are you okay? I realize it's Kiara. And so she goes, oh my goodness, are you awake? And I said, yeah, you alright? So she sits on the bed next to me, and she's like crying. She's like, oh. I said, are you alright? She says, I'm just scared. I don't want to be out there. I don't want to be out in the living room. I said, why? What happened? She tells me, I had the worst dream. And I says, okay. She tells me, my dream started with you and me out in the living room watching our movie, like finishing our movie together. And she says, as we're watching the movie, this man comes out from the hallway and starts to intimidate us. And I said, don't say anything. Stop. Don't tell me. So we turn the light on in the bedroom. I grab one of her little journal page books or whatever, and I start drawing the guy that I had seen inside the dream that I just had. And I showed it to her. Hair, everything, all wacky. Eyes, bright white. Skin, dark. Teeth, sharp. And I said, is this what he looked like? She goes, yeah, this is the guy. That's what I saw, but he was short. And I'm like, holy smokes, man. That was something. That was something very, very strange. And so we had this dream at the exact same time. It started and ended at the same exact time. The dream ended for her, scaring her back into her bedroom where I was. And the dream ended for me where I was trying to come up with a logical explanation as to what I experienced. And seeing the door open and freaking me out even further, because now I know I'm awake and I see the door moving on its own. I know she was sleeping. I didn't know it was her entering the bedroom. And then, of course, drawing the picture of this shadow man, it, just... I don't have any explanation. I don't understand how we could have possibly shared the same dream of the same thing in the same place about the same person. No explanation. No idea. Definitely not a coincidence. Impossible to have those kinds of things being so lined up perfectly in that instance. But yeah, we dreamt together of the Shadow Man. And we call him the Shadow Man ever since. But yeah, no idea. I mean, could you imagine though how many people on our planet who are sleeping at the same time, thinking they're having this unique experience in their dream, and like maybe being at a carnival or a circus where other people are. Imagine how many of them believe that it's just a dream that only they are experiencing. Could you imagine like there being a carnival or a circus, watching bears walking around on balls, or clowns, right? Doing juggling, hearing music playing, smelling the sweet smell of caramel corn, right? Hearing the sounds of somebody on a loudspeaker talking about, coming to get their scripts for the carnival, smelling the engines of portable generators cooking up and powering these massive machines like the zipper or the Ferris wheel, you know. And all of these people that are having this particular dream together are sharing the same experience. It's just wild. It's just wild to imagine that all these, you know, all this time we think we're having dreams, you know. One person in a dream is chasing a chicken down the road, trying to catch the chicken to eat it. Another person is dream of being chased by a giant monster trying to eat them. We're all freaking each other out. We're all freaking each other out. Sleep paralysis one, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that was, because I've seen things like that later on during investigations and stuff. I've seen shadows and whatnot that kind of were similar to that of the one that was in my room. So that one was like a visitation that put my wife to sleep and held me down. The second one was a visitation in our dreams that woke us up in the same situation while we were dreaming. It's really interesting. So there's a lot more things that are going on in our lives than we know. A lot of stuff that we can't explain. A lot of things that when we go to sleep come to life. So I know in the Hawaiian culture, in my culture, it is believed by our people that during the day when the sun is up, that's our time. Time to dance in the sun. But when the sun sets and the moon comes out, it's time for the spirits to walk the earth. And it's during those times that it could make you or break you when you find something strange happening. Sounds like somebody's trying to get in my door right now. But anyway, I think I spoke long enough. It's almost getting to that hour point. And yeah, I don't want to make it too lengthy, but there's a couple more stories. Sleep paralysis? I don't think so. Dreaming together, coincidence of the Shadow Man? Coincidence? I don't think so. If anything, these experiences strengthened the bond between me and my wife. Can't say I've ever experienced anything like that with anybody else. I may have, but I don't know them. So keep your eyes open. Next time you dream of somebody, they might be dreaming of you. Alright, so I just want to say aloha and thank you for stopping by for this Moe Uhane Monday. Please check out the Moe Uhane. I mean, that one is a heartfelt one. I really get emotional inside that one, and it's only because my mom is my hero. Yeah, my whole family, my parents were both there as protectors, and I just wanted to share a little bit of my life, my story with you guys, and some of those stories are very interesting. Chicken skin. But anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I don't know. If you have anything that you guys want to hear about or any interest, then please, by all means, write comments. Like, my channel is such a barren channel when it comes to people communicating with me or talking or sharing comments. It would be nice to hear what you guys have to think. I was actually contemplating whether or not I was going to do a live stream Moe Uhane Monday and just kind of sit here in front of the camera and wait for people to ask questions about just anything in general, about me, about the paranormal, about their experiences they can share with me too. I think that'll be kind of fun. But yeah, other than that, I'm gonna end it here. Thank you for coming by. Big aloha to all of you for taking the time out to hear these stories and sharing my life. And I'd like to share with you more, but I'd also like it if you share with me. So please comment. Maybe it'll get other people to start a conversation too. But anyway, I'd like to say aloha, a hui hou. Until next time. See you later.